All right, how's it going out there, folks? Good Sunday morning. It is the Earthmaster out here, about 10:39 a.m. That's California time here. April 6, 2025 is the date. Latest activity shows a 1.6 across the west coast there. Also notice a little bit of larger movement up north around Washington just a couple hours ago. This is outside of Seattle in the Cascade Range for a 3.7, about 5 miles deep underneath this region. A ways away from Mount Rainier, again, just located up here across the Cascade Mountain Range. Just another little earthquake out there that's been somewhat elevated sequence of events in the past couple months across the Washington area. Although it's been tapering off slightly out here, but still it's an overall pattern here of seismic uptick across the entire west coast in my observation here over the last several months. What it's leading to, well, we'll just have to wait and see. Some activity out there on the Cascadia subduction zone. This one was from last month, a little 2.8. Very shallow earthquake. I do like to go back sometimes and look at these quakes that get added on after the fact. I don't believe this earthquake was listed back on the date that it supposedly happened, but it's very small surface quake out there across the Cascadia. And of course, Washington seen a whole lot of movement. California as well. I mean, look at the entire west coast out here. Got a pretty good cluster of quakes. 5,000 earthquakes here, but that's including the operations down there in the oil fields. We'll get rid of that. Drops it a little bit, just under 5,000, about 4,700 in the last 30 days of all magnitude earthquakes. Now it's a little bit elevated for sure, but again, the California area, almost always seeing microquake activity. For example, today, 157 earthquakes across California. One would think, how come the news ain't reporting on this? Well, it's, most of the time these little microquakes here happen on any given day. But observations here today show an elevated movement up here across the southern end of the Juan de Fuca plate and also here across the San Andreas fault. Got one right on the southern branch of the San Andreas fault as well within the last hour. Let's go ahead and check out the area up north. That's going to be the Juan de Fuca plate, but technically speaking, there's a small microplate here called the Gorda plate. There's three separate plates, three connected plates here. The Explorer, Juan de Fuca, the bigger one in the middle, and then the small one here, the Gorda plate, and that's being subducted underneath the Northern California region here for the Cascadia subduction zone. A couple earthquakes right on the southern end of that. Most of these here from yesterday. I'm not seeing anything new after midnight, but a slight uptick there in 2 and 3 magnitude range. Further down across the state of California, a little bit of activity stirring up in the mountains near Stagecoach. Well, that's in the Nevada area, it looks like. Northeast of Carson City. This is, let's see, that's not the region that had the 5.7. The 5.7 that struck last year, end of last year, was right here. This is some newer activity happening up here. Little cluster of swarming this morning. Got about 20 earthquakes that popped up here. Oh, looks like it started a little bit yesterday, but then ramped up with a 3.4 just around 2 o'clock in the morning, and then it just kind of advanced till the last quake about 8:30 in the morning. So these are some mountains up here. Obviously, we got some fault systems, unnamed fault systems out here. The satellite view, we'll go ahead and take a look here, see what's out there in the desert right next to this facility, whatever this may be. Kind of out there away from the main area, main population region. I don't know what this is here. But yeah, awfully close to that facility that's out there in the desert. And then, of course, down south here around the Yerington area, this is a region that had a 5.7 here last year, towards the end of last year. Unless it was the beginning of this year. I can't remember exactly. There was a lot of earthquake activity happening there towards the end of 2024. But still seeing some aftershock sequences there. Got about a little separate swarm up here as well. That's actually rather interesting here. I'm going to go back and look because I believe the 5.7 struck up here. So this is a newer region, but within kind of the same location. Let's go look here real quick, see what we got. We can bring up all magnitudes there. I just want to go back here and take a look real quick. We're going to draw a little rectangle here on the map outside in the Nevada area. Man, I wish they would get their maps fixed. I mean, it's fixed a little bit, but it's still a little hard to tell exactly where everything's at. It's probably going to be right about here. There we go. I covered it, and then some. So the Arrington area back over here, yeah, there's a migration pattern going on there. I noticed that because most of the movement was up here from that 5.7. This is taking a southward pattern, it looks like. Where we're at right now with the increasing earthquake activity down south here. Now, I don't recall if the fault system had that type of setup out here in terms of a fracture up north and then one that comes down south, but that's rather interesting. I'll have to look into that. But anyway, we got 1,223 earthquakes, including the largest magnitude, which is the 5.7 Parker Butte. They have it here as a Parker Butte, Nevada earthquake. I don't know if they got any fault maps out here or not. I don't really see any. But definitely interesting, the pattern that's taken place here, from the main quake and the sequence of aftershocks up here, now down south. So that's looks like it's traveling along a fault system here somewhere, which could tap into maybe a fault further south, which could result in some larger earthquake activity. A couple different faults out here. A lot of these go north to south somewhat, but I can't really see. Let me get rid of all these earthquakes real quick. Which would, let's see, I'd have to review this. Where am I? There we go. Let's modify the search just a tad bit here. We're going to include that 5.7 there. I just want to see if I can spot the... Yeah, it's not really located up there. There's a couple different faults here, but where that 5.7 struck, I'm really not seeing anything showing up there on the map. But anyway, little sequence of events happening there, and still seeing, what looks like a migration pattern going on across this area. And it got new movement up north here, ways away from that 5.7 region. Last week or so, we had some interesting activity up north. Let's see. Yeah, way north here of Elko, north of Interstate 80, near Valmy, Nevada. Bunch of 3s, 2s, even a 4-pointer in there. Nevada is obviously a, seismically active state here, but most of the time here, when things are ramping up across Nevada, that's a good sign of strain out here across the California region. That 7-pointer that struck there in Northern California in December, right? I remember feeling that one. It was just a week later that we had that 5.7 strike over here in Nevada. So, the strain out there against the West Coast is quite high because it's showing inland across this region. So just keep an eye on it. There's, no one knows for certain exactly what's going to happen or when. You just got to look at these stress signs, right? Like anything else in life here. If you look at your car, if it's getting hot, there's obviously a reason for it. Showing some stress signs out here. Bay Area of California, pretty quiet right now. Aside from the geothermal operations up north, there's the movement on the San Andreas fault. That looks like the majority of it's on the creeping section here. Getting close, though. Look at that. Getting close to the Parkfield segment. Ooh, and that's where the swarming is taking place. They're right at the interchange, or right at the creeping section to where it transitions into the Parkfield segment. This is where the strain builds up. The creeping segment here, they call it the creeping section because it's a portion of the plate boundary there that instead of locks up, and builds up strain to produce big earthquakes, it kind of just slips along slowly with periodic small earthquake activity and probably some slow slip type of events going on there. But we're right down here across the almost very close to the Parkfield segment. And this area of the Parkfield region of San Andreas Fault is coming up. I'd probably say we're at the time period here where we should see a 6-pointer. Even some strain down south here on the Garlock Fault shear zone showing right now. So watch this area of the plate boundary. The 6-pointer regular interval runs about 20 to 22 years. It's a very studied area, highly studied area, where they can almost predict earthquakes occurring on a certain year because of the regular pattern that takes place out here with the Parkfield segment. So the last one was back in 2004. Here we are, 2025. Okay, so we're looking at 21 years, and the intervals run between 20 to 22. So watch that. It looks interesting there because I don't believe we've seen anything out here like that recently. Very close to the Parkfield segment. And there's obviously a little concern here that the Parkfield section that runs down into a couple different segments here could trigger, the highly strained San Andreas Fault. If you really think about it, it could, with a complete unzip down here across this area of the Parkfield all the way down into Southern California, which, would result in an 8.1 earthquake there across the plate boundary. Looking interesting today with that one, and then we got some activity here across the Garlock Fault shear zone. 1.7 and a 1.9, or just off the Garlock Fault shear zone. This is the, a couple unnamed faults. This is a region that had the 5.4 earthquake last year, just outside of Bakersfield. There's a lot of activity happening last year, very active. And it seems like it's calmed down a little bit, but then it comes in waves again, where the seismic activity increases. Malibu showing some activity as well, with a 1.4 today. Puente Hills stress fault there underneath Los Angeles still has doesn't have anything on there yet, but that's been a region of interest here last year because of the earthquake activity that was occurring on it, and it runs directly underneath Los Angeles. That fault system does. And it's been a couple thousands of years since we've had any large rupture activity on there, and that's capable of the 7.5 directly underneath Los Angeles. That's pretty much a worst case scenario. So the San Andreas Fault down here, the southern branch for right now. A couple smaller earthquakes on opposite sides here. Look at that. Just one here, one there. This thing is strained, but you just don't know. I mean, how much longer can it hold out? The beast is holding on strong here for over 300 years for the southern branch. The rest of the area looks pretty quiet out here. Intermountain West regions and Yellowstone. Let's go double check. Yellowstone here has been, let me bring back up Yellowstone. Has been little active with microquake activity. There's a couple more here in the last 24 hours. You can see them very discreetly on these stations here. Maple Creek, Old Faithful, Mary Lake, Purple Mountain. Talking about these earthquakes right here. There's a handful of them. Nothing big. Just some very small microquakes. Probably about 1.7 and below. But notice how they show up there across the majority of the seismos. Zip, zero, nada being reported. And I'll say it again because some folks may have missed it. But the USGS does not report earthquake activity on the holidays or weekends when it comes to certain areas. Yellowstone, one of them. Unless it's above a set magnitude of 2.5 and above. Anything below that will be observed Monday morning after they get into office, and the morning meeting, the coffee, the donuts, all that good stuff, and then they'll look at the seismograph maps. Ask me how I know. I do know. I've been watching these it's the same pattern. It's just the same pattern of, unless there's a major swarm going on, then they'll adjust the computers there to pick up some lower magnitudes. But for whatever reason, I don't know why, they won't report anything above 2.5 or below 2.5 for this area. until after review. Pecos, Texas. Oil fields getting hit fairly nicely out there. There's a massive amount of gas and oil fields out there in the desert. May not look like it, but if you fly over this area, man, there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of them. Wastewater holding tanks or ponds as well. Those are not swimming pools, right? Looks like a beautiful blue swimming pool out in the desert of Texas for the hardworking oil folks. Well, no, I wouldn't want to go swimming in that. That's some wastewater pond out there. They inject that back into the area below. There's a whole process, but there's, literally thousands of these oil wells out here. And guess what? Earthquake activity continues in those regions. New Madrid seismic zone, pretty quiet. I was talking about this a little bit last night, how the New Madrid seismic zone has just been getting hammered with rainfall, right? Probably around maybe 4 to 5 to 6 inches. Looks like observed precipitation here in the last 24 hours. But, this is just the last 24 hours here from the weather.gov site. New Madrid seismic zone sits within that range right there where all the heavy precipitation is. I'll show you guys on the map. Same area, New Madrid seismic zone. This is the U.S. hazard map here from, in regards to the New Madrid seismic zone, which is capable of producing big earthquakes. The last series of quakes was back in 1811, 1812. A lot of rainfall dumping on that. And sometimes, it can, lubricate the areas below and release in an earthquake the built-up strain that's been building up here for over 200 years. Right now, nothing showing up there on the USGS map. I was just checking the seismograph stations there in that area as well. Pretty quiet over the last hour or so. Refresh that and see what we got. Yeah, really not a whole lot coming in. We would see it. If there was earthquake activity, it would show up here on the graph. But as of right now, no signs of any impending earthquake activity from the excessive rainfall over that region. Puerto Rico Trench, still seeing some activity. Well, it's around the San Juan, Puerto Rico area, it looks like. Not so much along the trench zone. The trench is observable right here on the oceanic crust map. Most of the activity at the surface or underneath the area of Puerto Rico. There's the Mariotos Trough, which kind of pushing up the land here, but also the Puerto Rico Trench, a highly dynamic region of the area of the Caribbean plate. That's capable of producing some large earthquakes on either end. Right now, just got a little bit of movement in between in the 3 range. Worldwide activity, some newer movement way up north here. Way north of Russia. It's almost at the top of the pole there, or top of the earth. Pretty much dead center. Well, I don't know where the center is. Somewhere up here. But some newer activity. I believe there's only one 5.4. The globe showing 2. That was early this morning, about 3 o'clock or so for that 5-pointer. New Zealand kicking in a little bit. This one deep underneath the North Island area, 4.5. Again, that's going to be associated with the Hikurangi subduction zone, which sits off the east coast here of the New Zealand region. 89 miles deep for that quake. 4.5. Let's see here. Looks like a handful of quakes down here. So we got a 4.5 deeper underneath the area, then some shallow adjustment going down along that plate boundary. Let's go check out the GeoNet servers here real quick, see what we have. 2.4, the latest one, 13 kilometers deep underneath North Island. There's that 4.2, one of the more recent quakes. .4 South Island just about 3 hours ago. There's a 4-pointer deep one underneath North Island. 4.2, some shallow adjustment towards the southern end of the Hikurangi subduction zone. There's a deep one, super deep one. So there's been a bunch, it looks like a bunch of earthquakes underneath North Island with some surface adjustment going on at the southern end of the Hikurangi. So watch that. Definitely looking interesting there across the area. USGS only showing, if we're lucky, 4.5 and above for the New Zealand area, even though it, sometimes they'll show a 2-pointer down here. It's like, what? Let's be consistent here. So aside from that, we got keep an eye there on New Zealand. Still seeing some movement here across the Papua New Guinea area. This is where the 6.9 struck here. I still think there was two of them, but it's just my observation. 6.9, a lot of aftershock activity occurring. Although, let's see what we got here. Bunch of four still. There's a 5-pointer. I don't see the magnitudes getting larger, but that's still a good hefty amount of earthquakes occurring in that area. So continue to watch that. Of course, this is one of those regions here that has built up a lot of strain in a short amount of time period. It doesn't take, hundreds and thousands of years to build up enough strain for big earthquakes out here. So they come and go a lot. One earthquake filling in around the Vanuatu area. That's a seismic gap zone here that's been quiet of earthquake activity, while regions west here and east along the plate boundary, the subduction zone, are showing elevated activity. Pretty much hop, skip, and a jump over this area, leaving this region absent of earthquake activity. But we do have one earthquake late last night, a 4.9, slightly filling in this area, but keep an eye on it. I think it's going to show some further movement here soon. Nothing going on in Hawaii. That's surprising. Makes me want to go over there and double check. Let's go see what we got here from the Kilauea volcano site. Not interested in all the news right now and other topics. Let's see what we got for deformation data. Still going up. This is the inflation chart. Here's our last eruption on the 1st or 2nd of April. Looks like the first time period, excuse me. Then it paused there on the 2nd, going back up. Slowly but surely, we're still rising. That tells us that things are continuing to inflate, meaning magma is recharging underneath the summit area. I think we got a couple days, though, before we see a return to an eruption status there across Kilauea Volcano, though. Alaska's Alaska. Beautiful state of Alaska up there. Got some microquake activity. Really nothing major going on there across that state. Atlantic Ocean pretty quiet, aside from some movement up in Iceland. Mediterranean and the Middle East area. A lot of older movement there across Middle East. Mediterranean region got some 2s out there, maybe a 3 or so. Really nothing big going on. Let's check out the Canada website real quick. I know I have quite a few viewers up there in Canada, and they always want to know what's going on up there. Right now, let's see here. This is Western Canada. Let's see what we got. I mean, it's not a whole lot going on up here right now. The most recent earthquake here going to be into the Alaska area, so well west of Juneau. That's a little 1.9. That looks a little bit bigger than that on the map, but oh, there we go, 3.8. Nothing big. Really not a whole lot happening up there in Canada right now. Yes, some oil fields getting hit. It's crazy. The Earthquakes Canada site actually marks these as suspected industry-related event. And they're similar to Texas, where all the gas and oil fields are. They mark them not as earthquakes, but industry-related events. Crazy, huh? But that's technically the correct wording for it, because it's related to the gas and oil fields out there. Space weather activity. I had my hopes up. I did have my hopes up a little bit. I'm hoping there's a sunspot on the far side over there. We'll get a peek of it here in the coming days, way out on the eastern limb, that may provide some elevated flaring activity here once, and hopefully if it holds up, once it's on the earth-facing side here of the sun. Right now, what we do have is some sunspots that are not all that happy. They're just kind of fading off into the sunset, so to speak. Its own sunset out there. This massive area is starting to dismantle and look fairly weak. We got this newer region right here, but yeah, it's really not complex here. Just got a little simplified magnetic structure. We'll watch the center portion, though, and around it, see if it doesn't start popping in these different colors, indicating some complexity. But that's 4054. We'll keep an eye on that one. The far side watch, I don't Oh, they did. They fixed it. They updated it. All right. Wonderful. Wow. What happened to that sunspot? Maybe we won't be seeing anything here in the coming days. Yikes. This was decent looking here a few days ago. That pretty much just filled in, and I don't know. It still may be active, right? It did produce a CME. One of these areas out here on the far side produced a CME yesterday or the day before, but I'm not really impressed with anything I'm seeing there on the far side for now. Goodness. All right. Storm Prediction Center starting to get a little break for now, right? There's been so much severe weather out here, a lot of tornado activity. Goodness, a lot of rainfall. Completely squashed the drought conditions out there, though. No more drought. I got slight risk for some severe weather across extreme south and the panhandle of Florida area, mainly due to some tornado activity today, potential. 5% and a 2%. Wind, no hail threats. So we got a little bit of wind to deal with and some twisty, windy, spirally things called tornadoes out there. So just keep your eyes peeled for that. Aside from that, long-range models here. Got a storm system out in the west coast. Going to bring us a little bit of rain. Not much, though. It's coming to that time of year where things start to dry out for us here in Northern California. We normally don't get a whole lot of rain in April, May, June, July, August, September, October. It's our dry period, and I'm not looking forward to our summers out here. You think I'd be used to it after living out here most of my life, but you just can't get used to 115 degrees. I mean, who does that? Who steps outside and says, this feels great? That's not the feels like temperature either. That's the actual air temperature. I know sometimes it can feel like 110 down in Texas and stuff, but that's a humidity. Out here, it's hot and, dry for the most part, unless you're around rice fields like me. Then you add in the heat index. It's just miserable. That's the only word I can think of. I don't mind summertime temperatures of 80s and 90s, but when it gets up there above 110, and it does here around Northern California, not the coast, not the Sierra Nevada mountains, not around Mount Shasta, but the Death Valley of California, the Big Death Valley. It's officially not named Death Valley here in the Sacramento Valley. I call it that because it's just so darn hot. But for now, it's supposed to be about 78 degrees. I'm going to get outside and enjoy it. Got a little bit of rain coming this evening. More storm systems lined up here across the Southern Plains, Texas, Arkansas. It's a rinse and repeat here. Look at that. Identical pattern to what just took place here with the severe weather coming up in around the 18th or 19th or so of this month for the same area, right over the New Madrid seismic zone. All right. I'm out of here, folks. Seismograph stations there look pretty quiet for now. Not a whole lot going on. Hope everyone enjoys their Sunday out there. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening for the Sunday night update. Make sure you guys subscribe while you're here. I still have a toss-up of new viewers and returning viewers. About 50 subscribed, 50 not subscribed. So we appreciate it there. If you like the videos, to hit that subscribe button as we do daily updates here on world events. Not political. This is nature-related, earth-related events. And all sorts of good stuff out here. So make sure you guys subscribe and click the like button to help us out a lot. We'll see you guys out here tonight for the Sunday night update. Because Monday, getting close. We'll see you guys later.